Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wellbeing podcast, where I talk about health and fitness and give some tips and tricks on habit-based changes that we can make without causing or requiring a super restrictive deficit or anything like that to really make it difficult, right? We want to make it easy. So thank you for joining today. My name is Zach Bush. We are going to talk about sleep today. So the importance of sleep, the effects that can result from lack of sleep, the benefits of sleep, some challenges that people typically face, strategies to help increase the likelihood to sleep, to get to sleep, to stay asleep. And then, as always, we'll leave with a action step that we can take to start working on figuring out our sleep, how we can improve it if we need to improve it. Hopefully, you have no problem sleeping, but I know there is a significant issue with people either staying asleep, getting to sleep, or just having overall quality sleep together, right? It's one thing to be in bed for the time that you need, but it's another one to actually sleep and get what you need out of it. So you can listen to all of our previous episodes on Spotify. You can watch them on YouTube. You can download them all through there. We'll go live every Sunday at 11 a.m. as long as I'm not sick like I was the time before. So let's talk about sleep in general, right? Everybody loves sleep. I know I do. My wife can attest to this. If I don't get a good night's sleep or a long, restful night of sleep, I'm a little cranky. And if it's getting towards later in the night, I'm not a night person. Once it starts hitting at 8:30, 9:30, like I am ready to go to bed. And if I don't, I start to get cranky. And so she can definitely attest to that. I know some people, right, are night people. They can stay up until 11, 12, 1 in the morning, and they'll sleep in later. I'd rather get up early, start knocking some stuff out, and I've just trained myself to do that, get into that rhythm. So that being said, not everybody can get to sleep for whatever reason. That's not everybody can stay asleep. So let's talk about some of the negatives from lack of sleep. So how much sleep do we need, right? Typically, we're looking 7 to 9 hours, right? 9 would be a pipe dream, I know, for some people, but if we can get 7 hours consistently, that would be super, super helpful. Under 7 hours, right, you can start seeing some effects, right? That could be mentally, that could be physically. Once you start significantly going below that 7 hours, especially over a long period of time, right? If it's a weekend or even just a week-long stint, probably not the biggest deal. But if you're consistently going less than 7 hours, you can start seeing some long-term health consequences from that. I'm not a doctor, so I can't, prescribe anything or even talk to it from that high of a level. I've just seen some studies that are done that say that long-term effects can start with diabetes. It can affect your blood pressure and heart disease, right? Sleep allows us to regulate our hormones. It allows us to recover if we've worked out or doing anything. It lets our brain kind of rest and reset. There's a significant correlation between sleep and blood sugar as well. So sleep deprivation will increase cortisol, which will increase our glucose and our sensitivity to that, and our sensitivity to insulin. So we want to make sure that we're not causing these big spikes and in our blood sugar, and our sleep will help regulate that, not only while we sleep, but throughout the day. And so just goes to show that it's super important to make sure we get enough sleep. So Andy says, just woke up, 12 hours of sleep. Awesome. Is too much sleep bad? Depends. Depends how productive you want to be. But I would say, consistently, no. I would think not. Typically, your body's going to wake up when it needs to wake up. And so I would say if your body lets you sleep 12 hours, awesome. Would I do it consistently? Probably not. But, again, that could be for one reason or another. I know you've been super busy with a lot of school stuff and teacher stuff, so you've been up late. So maybe that 12 hours was your body saying that you did need it. And so that being said, another thing too is if you're dieting, if you're in a hypocaloric state, so you're in a caloric deficit, which means you're eating less than your body is consuming in effort to lose weight, if you're doing that and also not sleeping, it doesn't allow your body to process things the way it should. And it could affect the way you're losing weight. Doesn't mean you won't, but it could affect how much you lose, or it could affect what you lose. So one thing that I read as part of this was to see what that effect was. And they said that body sometimes when you're in a caloric deficit and you don't get enough sleep will actually start eating away the muscle before the fat. Now, I don't know, I didn't read in all the details. Again, I was just listening to, what a doctor who's smarter than me and understands the biomechanics of it. But he was saying that you'll start eating your muscle quicker. Maybe it's more accessible than the fat. And so, therefore, muscle weighs more than fat. If we're starting to eat the muscle, that's not exactly what we want, right? Anybody who's in a hypocaloric, deficit and wants to lose weight, typically you want to try to maintain that muscle mass as well. And so not losing as much as you should by not sleeping, right? You might be doing everything else right. You're eating well, you're exercising, but the sleep could be the one thing that is throwing you off. And we want to make sure that we kind of have everything covered. There's a nutritional pyramid, or there's a health and fitness pyramid. At the bottom is the nutrition, and then typically it goes up to exercise. I think somewhere in between there should be a sleep category, because it's like nutrition and sleep. Those are the two foundational pieces to a healthy lifestyle, because they affect everything else, right? They affect how you exercise. They affect how you feel. They affect how you think, right? So we're going to go into cognitive effects, at less than 7 hours of sleep. Logical reasoning, flexible thinking style, ability to focus on a large goal or multiple goals simultaneously can be affected. I think we've all woken up and feeling a little groggy and just brain cells aren't firing, things aren't working right, you're not thinking right. Maybe you do your morning crossword puzzle and it's just like, this should be simple and I'm just not getting it. So we've all felt what that's like just from not getting enough sleep. And these effects can be even more pronounced on monotonous tasks that we're doing, right? Folding laundry, or even doing a crossword puzzle, like doing the dishes. Like you might not realize it, but you're just not firing the way you should be. And that leads to another thing is maybe you've been in this deficit for a while, and that might not be anything that you're purposely doing. Maybe you're getting into bed at 10 and trying to sleep until 5, trying to get your 7 hours, and it's just not happening. But over the long term, your body's really good at adjusting to new stimulus, especially stimulus that's repeated over and over again. So your body just gets used to it, whether it is eating more than you should or eating less than you should. Your body adjusts to it, right, by regulating your metabolism. It also does that the same with anything else. So after not sleeping for a while, that cognitive function might slow down. You kind of adjust and get used to that fact. You might not even realize how affected you are by it. For example, when you are dieting, when you do get into a caloric deficit, you start off the first couple of weeks, especially once you start really getting below your caloric needs, you really are super hungry for a little while. And once you get past that point, your body goes, okay, we are in starvation mode. We're not getting the calories that we usually see or should get. And so let's start slowing things down, right? Let's start whatever we can shut down, whatever we can limit the amount of extra metabolism that we have. It'll lower our energy, but it'll keep us from eating ourselves alive. So your body adjusts to that. And then eventually your hunger starts going down. It doesn't go away, but it starts going down. And then you get used to that. You get used to that not being hungry. And then when you hit your weight, your goal weight, you start increasing it back up and you start getting super full, super quick. Right? Your body got used to it, and now it needs to get used to going back the other way. Same thing with sleep. You might just feel like, oh, this is just how I am, like normally. And then you go a stretch of time, maybe you go on vacation and you're getting great sleep and you're like, wow, like my mood is better. My thoughts come in easier, cleaner, quicker. My conversations, are a lot sharper. And so you can really start seeing the changes, but you just might not realize it because you're just so used to that lack of sleep. Yes, irritability. Jeff says irritability from lack of sleep as well. You don't realize how on edge you become from low amounts of sleep, for sure. I know, like I said earlier, my life, like when I am tired and that's it. Like I need nothing other than sleep, and I start getting a little cranky. And so, like Jeff said, you get irritable. and you might start reacting to things abnormally. And sometimes when you start doing that, you have to sit back and think, okay, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I tired? Right? Those are a couple of things. I listened to a podcast, this was probably a few months ago, but it's the same process, right? He called it HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. You start being irritable about things that you're not usually irritable about, or it just comes out of nowhere. Think through those 4 things. Am I hungry? Right? No, I'm not. I just ate. Am I angry? Right? Maybe the thing that sparked it didn't make you angry, right? Maybe you were fine, and maybe you're just angry at something in general, and that created a different emotion from whatever event that happened. There's loneliness, right? Have I been alone for a while? My wife's away all weekend, so I've been alone. My son's been here, but have I been alone, right? People need social interaction. And then tired, right? So thinking through that, am I tired? Is it 10 o'clock and I usually go to bed at 9? Or am I up at 5 because I had to be somewhere and I don't usually get up until 6:30? So thinking through those things might help with that reaction and response to that stimulus. And so, mood and judgment are the main things that affected when you don't get the amount of sleep that you need. They just become more and more pronounced as we go. And the problem too is, maybe, like I said before, we're getting the 7 hours or we're in bed for 7 hours, but we're not getting that quality sleep. One of the reasons we might not be getting that quality sleep or staying asleep through the night is alcohol. And, even one drink can have an effect on the quality of sleep, because your body has to work extra hard to filter that out. And, it's still working through your brain, that alcohol, even just a little bit. So it causes poor sleep. And, maybe we'll talk about on another episode on just alcohol and how to work around that, and, how to help with not only just sleep, but the extra calories that it comes with, and balancing, right? We're all about balance here. How can we balance the fun stuff that we want to do with also our end goal of being healthier, being happier, being fitter? So talk about that in a later episode. But another study that I read says that, they tiered it in low, moderate, and high alcohol. So low is less than 2 drinks for men, less than a drink for women. And they said that this decreased sleep quality by 9.3%, just by 1 or 2 drinks for men, or, a sip or 2 to a drink for women. All right. And then they go into moderate amount. So 2 drinks for men and 1 drink for women. That decreased it by 24%. And so you can see, even just from 1 drink to 2 drinks, just an additional drink, it's actually 14% overall decrease in the quality of sleep. And then our high amount, their high tier, is more than 2 drinks, right? And more than 1 drink for women. That decreases by 39%. So, I'm not a huge drinker, but 2 drinks is pretty easy to have over the course of a night. Dinner, right? You have your appetizer drink and you have your dinner drink, and then maybe, you have your espresso martini before you're done dinner, right? So the caffeine in itself, which we'll talk about later, will have the issue along with the alcohol. So that's 3 drinks right there. That's pretty easy to do if you're just an average drinker, right? Just casual social drinker. So you can see the disparity in the quality of your sleep and how much it is affected by even just alcohol. Just a simple thing that's super easy to do. And, so I used to wear a Whoop, which is, the wristband. It doesn't tell time or anything, but it just tracks your heart rate. It tracks your movement, how you sleep, your activity level, how much calories you burn, the effort you put in. It mostly uses heart rate to track all that stuff. So I had a time period probably 2 years ago where, I saw that and I was like, oh, that seems cool. Like, it'll tell you, how well you slept, and based on that, this is how much effort you can and should put in your workout to maximize it. And so watching that, right, I already knew that alcohol and sleep didn't mix. Right? That I slept horrible when I drank, and I woke up feeling like crap. So I knew I didn't get a good night's sleep. But having data, I'm a very data-driven person, and seeing it, having something tell me, hey, this is how bad you slept, is eye-opening. And so, when I first got it, I went to a bachelor party, and we were, Thursday night, we were out, and, the recovery level that it told me, sleep was, 80%, right? We didn't have too much to drink, whatever. Then we move on to the next night, and it just goes down more. It's like 60%. And then the next night, 40%. Like, you could see the sleep quality go down. the further we got into this bachelor party. And so my body's trying to fight through and recover through the drinks. And, I would say high amount. I definitely had more than 2 drinks in the day and the night, it's a bachelor party. So just seeing it decrease my sleep quality significantly over a couple of days, and I could feel it, right? I already knew that was what was happening, but to see the numbers come in and being like, wow, yeah, that's pretty bad. Like I said, it's based on heart rate. So normally when I sleep, I am between 40 and 60 beats per minute at night. So at rest, fully sleep. When I'm drinking, the Whoop was telling me I was on average 60 to 70 beats per minute for most of the night, right? So my heart rate is up. Like I'm up almost like I'm physically active, right? I'm walking around during the day. Normally, that's what my heart rate is. So I'm supposed to be sleeping. So you can see the amount of effort your body's doing and why the sleep quality goes down significantly, right? And, that was on an extreme end where it was a bachelor party and we were drinking a bunch, but even just 1 or 2 drinks and how much that will decrease the quality sleep that you get. So, what does sleep do when it comes to nutrition decisions and what we eat? Like I said before, it causes irritability, poor sleep, and doesn't allow us to cognitively function at a high level like we typically would. And so that lowers our decision making ability and also affects our hormones too. So when we get a lack of sleep, we have increased cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And because we have more stress hormone in us, we may be more stressed. Now, it might not be stress in the typical sense of, I have a deadline due, I have to cram this stuff in, but physically our bodies will feel that stress, right? Our heart rate will go up. That's probably why mine was up higher than it normally is. And that stress physiologically might cause us to just stress eat even more. We might feel like we need to eat because we are stressed, especially if that's how you typically cope with stress. You're going to be more prone to that. And also what it does is it decreases the amount of leptin. Leptin is the hormone that makes us feel satisfied when we eat. And so therefore, if we have less of that, we are going to be less satisfied no matter what we eat. That doesn't mean we won't be able to eat whatever and however much, but a meal that would typically get us full may not. So what does that do? It causes us to eat more to feel satisfied. So, right, we already are more inclined to stress eat. We will take more food in to feel satisfied, but also we increase ghrelin hormone, which is what tells us that we are hungry. So we are not only decreasing the food that tells us we're full, we're increasing the hormone that tells us we're hungry. So we're going to eat more and we're going to be hungry more often, right? So you can see how, both of those going in that direction that they're not supposed to go will cause us to eat more, but also cause us to feel less full, and therefore we just eat more and more and more. So that's why, when you're not getting good sleep, you may not be making the decisions as easy as you typically would when you have a good quality night's sleep, right? And the hormones can't regulate the body to not overeat. And weight loss and weight gain and just weight fluctuations are just an equation. It's how much are we taking in, how much are we burning? If we are in an excess of intake for burn, we're going to gain. If we are in a deficit of how much we're eating and we burn more than we eat, we're going to lose. It's as simple as that, right? Timing and all that stuff and certain nuances can affect the amount and rate that we lose or gain, but overall it's just an energy balance equation that we need to focus on. So, that's all the negatives of not getting enough sleep. I think we all kind of knew some of that stuff, but it's always good to hear and get some numbers and some percentages and some facts along with it. So, what are the benefits of sleeping? Obviously it's pretty much the opposite of all that. We have regulated hormones, so ghrelin, leptin, cortisol are all in the right amount. We get good recovery, especially if we are exercising. It allows our bodies, our muscles to recover, to be able to not be super tired for the next day, so that we can continue being consistent with our exercise, whatever that is, whether he's even just walking the dog, pushing the kids around, playing with the kids, or going to the gym, going for a run, anything like that. It will increase the amount that we burn like talked about before with the hypocaloric, it'll make sure that we are burning the right amount and regulating hormones and metabolism. And it'll put us in a better mood, right? Who has had a nice quality night of sleep and woken up in a bad mood? So if we can wake up in a positive mood, we talked about our mindset last week, how that will snowball into positive mood, positive thoughts, positive feelings, positive decisions. So obviously getting full night of quality sleep is super important. So the problem that comes with that is not everybody can do that. And different situations cause that. And that could be how busy you are at work. Maybe you have deadlines that you need to hit, or you need to work late, and sometimes you just have to get that stuff done, and it throws off your sleeping pattern. And your routine could even be interrupted, right? Especially, I have a 10-month-old son. When we first had him 10 months ago, even 6-7 months ago, right? Our routine is interrupted. He is up every few hours, and you're just not able to make that happen. And that's totally okay. And another thing that people deal with kind of with work and stress is that your mind, your thoughts can't stop going, right? If you're starting a business, or you're working on something on the side, or starting a new job, or just even in your current job, your mind, you might be thinking of all the things you have to do tomorrow, or that you didn't get done today, or something random pops into your head, and you want to get it done, so your brain starts processing through all of it. You're increasing your stress level, you're increasing your heart rate, and you're not letting yourself wind down and fall asleep. And that can cause issues if you're struggling to fall asleep. Maybe you finally get there, but then you wake up in the middle of the night and that thought pops back into your head. So that causes sleep quality issues. And then there's other things, like I mentioned, kids. Maybe your spouse snores and you either have to get up and move to the other room, or make him get up or her get up. And so the dog sleeps in the bed. Maybe the dog decides he wants to sleep on top of you, and that could be an issue. That might be not consistent issue, but it still could be something that ruins the flow of your sleep and the quality of your sleep, even just for that one night. So it's common challenges. A lot of people face the same thing. So what can we do to address those challenges? How can we work on improving sleep quality? So we can look at what happens before bed. And what we can look at too is, kids' routine. Like I said, my son's 10 months old, and we have a bedtime routine for him. We, at a certain time, we're going up to give him a bath, and we're, changing him and getting his pajamas on. We're going to read him a book, and then we're going to, give him his bottle, and then we're going to put him in the bed. So he knows that process by now. It's been done over and over again. So once that process gets started, his body starts kind of deregulating everything and gets him prepared for sleep. And not a lot of adults do that. And, obviously he doesn't have any responsibility, so it's a lot easier, but it doesn't mean that we can't structure that 20 to 30 minutes into our day and allow our bodies to deregulate itself and get ready for bed. And, I'm sure a lot of us stay up scrolling on our phone, or, we get into bed and we're scrolling through Instagram, right? That's our time to decompress, but a lot of that stuff can affect our sleep. And another thing would be that, our circadian rhythm. It is, really bad for our eyes to see that blue light after the sun goes down. And it can affect how we go to sleep and how well and easily we go to sleep. You can buy the blue light glasses that will help at least block out those lights that trigger our hormones to say, hey, the sun's up, like we should be getting ready to go and do stuff. So, that helps. There's a couple ways we can, help downregulate. Another thing that we can change to help improve sleep quality is caffeine and coffee, right? It's super prevalent now. I know I love my cup of coffee, 2 or 3 throughout the day, but typically after 3 p.m. I'm cut off. I'm cutting myself off from it. And it doesn't typically, like sometimes I've had it later than that, and it doesn't really affect me too much. Luckily, I have a decent time staying asleep and falling asleep. I attribute that partially to exercise. I just get super tired by the end of the day. But caffeine can have a big effect. Again, I was reading some information for this, and the half-life of caffeine is about 5 to 7 hours. So if at 2 o'clock you drink a cup of coffee, about half of it will be gone anywhere from 7 to 9, depending on your metabolism and how your body deals with it. So, you will still have some caffeine in there, which affects your nervous system and stimulation of how your brain is working. And even decaf has some caffeine in it as well. It's not as much, but it can affect you on your caffeine intake. And that doesn't even have to be coffee, right? All the energy drinks and typically will have a lot of caffeine in them, and it'll take a while for you to deregulate. And yeah, I used to not like coffee, and I used to just, I don't know, I thought it was not bad, but I didn't like the taste of it. And so, I've adjusted to how I drink and how much I drink, and try again. I've figured out that like 2 or 3 o'clock is like the time where I stop. And that was before I even knew about the half-life of coffee or caffeine in your body. The other thing too is, improving quality sleep at night is temperature and the amount of light, right? Obviously we're going to sleep better with dark room because that's, before we had houses and lights and electricity, the sun goes down, it's dark. And so that's how you're used to sleeping. But, the recommended temperature, 65 degrees. And, I like to keep the room cold, but your body needs to lower its body temperature. And, it also helps you get the comforter over and kind of snuggle up a little bit. But 65 degrees is that ideal temperature. So, in the wintertime, if you're up north like I am, super easy to do, right? It's, just run the heater a lot lower. In the summertime, obviously it's a lot harder. If you set your house to 65, your air conditioner's going to be running a lot. You're probably going to spend a lot on electricity. So there's a balance there, but I think adding some fans as well would help. But again, we want to keep cool because it'll help our body regulate itself. And we want to keep that nice dark room. Now, I listen to the Huberman Lab podcast, which if you haven't and you like data-backed information, Andrew Huberman has a great lab. He's a Stanford professor on like neurobiology or neuroscience, and he goes through and he reads all the studies on whatever topic he's talking about, and he just analyzes them, and he looks at them, he talks them, and what he does too is he takes everything from that super high level understanding, right? He's a PhD doctor, and he dumbs it down for people like me who is like, I don't like all the technical stuff, no thanks. But he dumbs it down and kind of explains it in a non-biased way. He just said, here's the data, here's what I'm going with, here's the things that I recommend based on this data. So very data driven. It's not emotion driven, it's not political driven. It's just, here's what I'm reading, here's what I'm seeing, here are my thoughts on it. So he goes through some protocols on how to help with sleep and help with circadian rhythm. One of them is making sure we get that bright light during the day. So he recommends getting that bright light 30 to 60 minutes from the time you wake up. And that's 10 minutes outside, with the sun shining down. Doesn't mean look directly into the sun, but if we get up and go outside, I try to take my dog for a walk in the morning. If we get 10 minutes of that bright light, that tells our body, our hormones to start waking up, start getting going, and it helps keep that circadian rhythm going. And then, if it's overcast, he says double it to make it 20. And then if it's really, really overcast, super cloudy, rainy, right, make it 30 minutes. And, not all of us have time to be able to go outside for 30 minutes right when we wake up. And so he recommends, turning on the lights, the bright lights and all that stuff, especially overhead lights. It's not ideal, but it'll work in a pinch, especially if you're somebody who, like me, who wakes up before the sun is typically up, except for maybe the summertime. So that, again, helps that circadian rhythm, right? Before we had all the electricity and lights and this artificial stuff, we, lived in caves and huts and didn't have any of that stuff. So when the sun went down, our bodies went to sleep because we couldn't do anything else. So he also recommends to do that, at evening, right before the sun goes down, take a walk. And again, that'll kind of help our bodies to recognize and our hormones to recognize that, all right, it's becoming nighttime and you start down regulating. Another thing on that is the Hatch nightlight. We have one of those. It's a white noise machine, but it has different stages, and you can set it in your bedroom, and it'll start with a light and slowly fade it down, and then it'll go into a white noise if you want it to. And then it does this opposite if you want for an alarm. 30 minutes for your alarm, it'll slowly turn that light on. So it is an artificial way to ease in to sleep and then ease out of sleep as well. So it's just a side note. I really like having that. And then the white noise at night is super awesome. Another thing he says is to be consistent with the time that you wake up and go to bed. And again, your body wants consistency. It'll adjust to whatever you're doing consistently. But if we can make it consistent, that's going to be the best, right? If I go up to bed at 9:30, and I'm up at 4:30, 5 o'clock pretty consistently. And when I have to throw that off, I get poor sleep, or I wake up less rested. So doing that consistent sleep and wake times is super helpful. And then if you know you're going to have times where it adjusts, or you're going to need to wake up earlier or go later, try to adjust it slowly, right? It's not always possible, but 15-minute increments, trying to adjust it that way. And so when it comes to sleep disturbances, insomnia, anxiety about sleep, there are some sleep hypnosis apps, some guided meditations. Yes, Seth, guided meditations. People use them. He calls them the NSDR protocol. Forget what it stands for, but if you search that, he has one that is a guided meditation. There's also a bunch on YouTube that you can listen to. It just changes depending on voice and even accent. But that will help too, because it helps your mind focus on that. And he did a study on it. He calls it the NSDR protocol, and it just lowers the heart rate, or gets the heart rate into at least a consistent rhythm. And that's something that helps people. Just again, if your mind's racing, it helps you regulate and deregulate your body to get ready to sleep, which I think more often than not, people struggle getting to sleep than necessarily staying asleep. So if you use something like the NSDR protocol, he calls out the Reveri app. That is Reveri. I've never used it, but it's kind of similar thing. Yeah, Balance app is good, and then Mindfulness. No, I forget what it's called. There's another one that I used to use that was guided meditations as well, and they're just like a soothing voice with a little story that goes along with it. So you're focused on the story rather than necessarily all of your thoughts that are piling in from the day before or the day that you have coming up potentially. So I mean, that's the most important part, I think, is what is your nighttime routine. Mine is pretty consistent. Like I said, I'm up, going up to bed at 9:30. I'm brushing my teeth, taking my contacts out, doing all that stuff, and then I get into bed and I read a book on my Kindle, right? And it's usually a fiction book, because the nonfiction stuff sometimes either puts me to sleep too quick, right? I read like half a paragraph and then I'm asleep, or I don't retain that information as much, because I typically read until I am literally falling asleep. So I'll typically read a fiction book that doesn't take a lot of extra brain power or anything like that. It's just kind of fun. Keeps me from thinking about whatever I needed to do and didn't get done, or that I need to do the next day, to get just, again, kind of like that guided meditation, just focus on something else that's not stressful, that's fun, that's relaxing, and helps you kind of ease into sleep. So that's typically what my routine looks like. So, not that you have to copy it, but that's what I want our action step to be for this week, is to think about our bedtime routine. If you have one, what does it currently look like? What is the timing? What time do you head up to bed? What are you doing when you go upstairs? What are you doing when you get into bed? And just keeping track of that. Are you on your phone a bunch? Are you watching TV? Are you playing video games, right? When I play video games, I usually take a little bit of time after to get my heart rate back down, right? As silly as it sounds, things can get a little intense in the game, and you don't even realize it sometimes until I'm laying in bed, like completely wide-eyed, ready to go, because my adrenaline is pumping from whatever happened. And so keeping track of all that stuff and being aware, most of this stuff is awareness, so then we can then start changing and affecting change and building those new habits. So identifying your current bedtime routine. Again, if you have one, if not, maybe identify something that you'd like to do. And then, right, what are you doing? When are you doing it time-wise? How long are you doing it? And then, how do you feel when you're trying to fall asleep? Do you stay asleep? Does the quality of sleep feel good? How do you feel when you wake up? So once you start recognizing that, you can start making adjustments to those routines. Ideally, when we want to cut out technology 30 minutes before we go up to bed, so whether it is TV or scrolling, right, we want to avoid getting into bed and scrolling on our phone, because you lose track of time pretty quickly. Get into bed at 9:30, next thing you know, it's 11 o'clock and you're like, oh my God, what happened to the time? But also it doesn't allow you to, stimulate or trick your brain to thinking it should be awake because of that light. So that's what I would recommend. If you got some good information out of this, or you think anybody else can use this information, please recommend it to them. Again, my goal is to just help as many people make the transition to a healthier lifestyle a little bit easier without any crazy restrictions. So if you know anybody that might be using this information or could use this information, please send them it over. I have uploaded everything onto Spotify. It's on my YouTube channel. We're live every Sunday at 11 a.m. So I thank everybody for joining me. If you need anything at all, DM me on Facebook, Instagram. I am happy to help answer any questions, whether it is sleep or mindset or fitness, nutrition, again, anything at all, please let me know. I just want to be a resource to help you guys out. But thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.